This is Jeremy Ramirez.
Yeah.
Jeremy is the father of Ezekiel Ramirez, who was, in our view, wrongfully murdered by Galveston police officers. And to date, it happened about 6 months ago, but to date, his family has gotten no answers as to why they decided to use excessive force and murder his son, how it happened, the facts surrounding the case, police body camera, any information that he's requested, and through his attorney, he has a separate attorney, has been denied or delayed. And this is an example of the pattern of practice in Galveston Police Department of not having compassion and not taking the time to help residents understand what is going on with the outrageous excessive force culture in Galveston Police Department. We also have Lori Lozano here with us today. Lori Lozano is one of the mothers of the victims of the incident that occurred at the Island Bay Resort. And she's here to join us to also express her concerns about the safety of her children and of residents in general in Galveston County. So, and we want to be clear that Galveston is a county, and we're talking specifically today about the dangers and the excessive force being used by the City of Galveston Police Department, which is the island of Galveston. So we're not just talking about a blanket county, we're talking about a specific city in Galveston County, which is called the City of Galveston and the island of Galveston. We also have another parent of the victims, and she's going to just join us in just a minute. Can you, ma'am, ask Bevan, who's back in that office, to join us, please? A correction for those who are taking notes. Ezekiel's last name is Savell, and you can spell that
S-A-V-E-L-L. Ezekiel Savell. Yeah, and the incident happened on March the 2nd.
Yeah. Mr. Ramirez, if you would just introduce yourself and explain a little bit about why you're here.
Yes, thank you. My name is Jeremy Ramirez. I am the father of Ezekiel Savell. That is S-A-V-E-L-L. Ezekiel was shot and killed on March the 2nd of this year by Galveston PD. He was at the front porch of his residence. There is multiple online articles about it that the facts can be picked up from there. But I'm here basically as an observer and to help with any way I can to contribute to the ongoing case of the excessive force and misbehaviors of Galveston PD. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to begin with this video so we can avoid any technical glitches in the way. And this link will be sent to everyone who provides us an email. And after the video, we'll get into the comments.
So this was originally live streamed to YouTube, and YouTube already demonetized this live stream because of the violence shown in this video. And I don't want to break Facebook rules too, so I'm not going to show this video, but the link to this video will be in the comments section below, right next to the @followers message.
We are very concerned about this excessive force culture. When we were here last time, we thought maybe this is a Jared Rivas problem. But what we've discovered since then is that this is a widespread culture that's pervasive in the entire Galveston Police Department and through its officers. We've identified through this video at least 4 officers who appear to be part of a goon squad of officers who are focused on excessive force, and they have been called to the scene of these events where individuals who have just simply been calling the police for assistance. In one of the videos, the lady had called the police herself, saying that she was being followed by a man. She was walking in Galveston and she was afraid for her safety. She called the police to help her, and when they got there, instead of helping her, the police officers became very apprehensive. She then became defensive, and the officers immediately attacked her and severely injured her. In the same case with the Jared Rivas case, where he is called to respond to an issue where people are at a pool party, instead of going and asking what's going on, how can I help you, explaining that he believes that they may have been there without permission, he immediately accelerates his force and begins to assault and attack people indiscriminately. And in the case of the pool incident, he attacked many youth, ranging in ages from 9 years old to older adults. Going back to Jared Rivas getting bonded out on his indictment, he has at least 8 charges against him. We're not sure how he was able to get such low bonds. Ordinarily, if you're a resident of Galveston and you get charged with these types of assaults and this many assaults, your bond is going to be very high, sometimes hundreds of thousands, above $1 million. And that's just if you have 1 or 2. He had 8. And we're wondering how a police officer of average median income is able to bond himself out with such an array of charges and what should be a much higher bond. And we're also concerned that he's a danger to the community and he's a flight risk. And so we'll be looking further into that. But we also want to inform the community of Galveston that through the diligent work of these individuals and through their suffering and the suffering of many individuals in the city of Galveston, we're asking you to come forward and notify my office at 713-234-7894 or the media outlets if you have been a victim of excessive force in Galveston or in any county. But specifically, we're concerned about Galveston because we have become aware of the fact that there is an exceeding amount of complaints of excessive force in the city and on the island of Galveston. We believe that there's a culture of excessive force in the city of Galveston Police Department, and we're very concerned that if this is not addressed, that it's going to continue and more people like this gentleman's son are going to be victims of assaults and even death, and we're very concerned about that. I have sent a letter on behalf of these families to the Department of Justice, asking the Department of Justice to investigate the culture of excessive force in the Galveston Police Department. And this letter went out last Friday, and we're asking for a serious investigation to be done. But the Department of Justice, on a federal level, doesn't have to be the only one getting involved and doing something about this. We're also calling on the city of Galveston and the mayor of Galveston to fire Police Chief Bali. This has been going on for far too long. These residents and many residents in the city of Galveston believe that Chief Bali is allowing and promoting a culture of excessive force, that there's a protocol for excessive force that's maybe it's unspoken, maybe it's part of the policy, and furthermore, we believe that there is actually a unit of individual officers who have been trained and advised on how to excessively handle and abuse residents in the city of Galveston. We believe that it's not enough to try to pin this whole thing on Officer Jared Rivas. This is a department problem, and they cannot, what's happening is that the city of Galveston is trying to pin this whole excessive force issue on Officer Jared Rivas. They fired him immediately, or pretty quickly, then they indicted him about a month later, and they're trying to say he's the problem. Officer Rivas is not the problem. It's the excessive force culture in the city of Galveston Police Department that is the problem. And we plan, with the support of these victims and residents, to do something about it. And we're asking the city of Galveston to create a de-escalation unit or training program with the city of Galveston Police Department, so that instead of abusing the residents, they are actually protecting and serving them, and they have that in mind first when they arrive to a certain altercation or situation. The second thing we're asking them to do is to create or install a mental health unit, so that if there's individuals who they believe have mental health issues, that they're dealt with adequately so that individuals like this, this gentleman's son don't have to be murdered because they're suffering with mental health episodes. And the third thing we're asking for is that a citizen council be attached or created to assist the city council of Galveston or the police commission to report and notify the city of these ongoing incidents of excessive force. I'm going to now ask the media if they have any questions and open it up to anybody here at the table that would like to, they'd like to ask questions to.
Lori, last time we spoke, you talked about how, in your eyes, Rivas was a bad egg among the police department. In the last several months, is that an opinion that has changed with this new information?
Absolutely not. I think they're all individuals. I think that they're all dealing with their own things, but at the end of the day, they're still officers, and they still represent our city. I've raised my children to have integrity and respect and to be accountable for their actions, and there's absolutely no reason we can't hold our city officials to the same level.
Let me ask you, going further with that question, now that we've learned more about the fact that it's not just Officer Rivas, but other officers who are doing this to residents, do you feel that Officer Rivas is the problem, or is it a larger problem in the police department?
I think definitely it's a larger problem. I think it's a seeded problem. You have to start from the bottom and go to the top, or the top and the bottom. You can't start in the center. These guys are getting their leadership from somewhere. Where is that, and who's accountable?
Would you please say your name and spell it for me?
Lori Lozano, Lozano.
Thank you.
Ms. Bevan, I don't know if you don't mind spelling your name and just again sharing how your family is involved in this and how you're feeling about this suit being brought forward and why you feel it's needed.
My name is Bevan McGuire. My first name is Bevan, B-E-V-I-N. Last name McGuire, M-C-G-U-I-R-E. It was my daughter's birthday that day. She turned 15. I was the second victim of Jared Rivas that day. He beat me in my face, knocked me out in front of my children on her birthday. My son was there, my other daughter was there, my nephew was there. My nephew had to fight him twice just to survive. So that's how I'm involved.
And just, given the indictment and that Mr. Rivas has since bonded out, how are you feeling about the process of getting justice for you and your family right now?
I'm scared. And nervous. I don't sleep very well. My children have suffered in many different ways since this incident. Jared, for me, is a personal problem because he personally hit me in my face. I see his face. But GPD that day did not back us up and did not help us. I was half naked in a two-piece bathing suit with stickers on the bottom of my feet, and I couldn't even lean on an officer for assistance. They did not cover me up. I had to ask them to.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Ruiz, how important was it that that citizen pulled out her camera and recorded what Rivas did? And how important is it that the citizens continue to record police officers when they see them?
Absolutely. A citizen's first line of defense to police excessive force is their camera on their phone. If you're ever a victim of excessive force, and unfortunately in these times, if you ever have contact with a police officer, one of the best things you can do is, even in anticipation of something happening, is pull out your phone and begin recording the incident. It is your right to record an incident with a police officer. Most officers may question you, why are you recording? What are you recording for? You can simply explain, I just want to make sure everything's fine, officer, and I want to be able to have this information for my personal use. If they're just asking you basic questions and they have a good probable cause and a reason to stop you and question you, it shouldn't be a problem. You will notice that some officers will become aggressive. At that point, you need to do what's best for your safety, but you do have the right to record these interactions, and we suggest that you do so.
You mentioned asking for the mayor to ask the police chief to resign, or you want the mayor to fire the police chief. Is this a formal conversation that you've had with the mayor at this time?
We have sent letters to the city of Galveston over the past month, asking them to respond to our request about the case at Island Bay. We've gotten no response. These citizens have filed complaints against the officers with the City of Galveston Police Department. They've gotten no response. No one from Victim Services has reached out to them about the health and safety of their families. In fact, we have information that some of those individuals who have reached out for help to the Galveston Police Department have had subsequent encounters with the police where they're made fun of. Police officers are aware that they were in the news. Police officers are aware that they made complaints against other officers, and they're then intimidated. And so the mayor of Galveston and the city of Galveston, the city attorney of Galveston, have not yet had the courtesy of reaching out to my office or any of my clients and asking, how are they, how can we help, what can we do to address this issue? No, I haven't gotten any communication.
In the information that you sent out prior to this press conference, you mentioned that there was an incident last year involving Rivas and a woman. Was that one of the videos that we saw?
Yes, it's the woman that was sitting down in the tank top shirt.
Okay.
And she would be here today. We'll have a follow-up conversation about that.
Okay. Did she file or try to file any sort of complaint after that incident happened? Do we know?
She has not. And again, it's a matter of fear for her safety. And, you know, most residents don't know what to do when they're put in the situation. I mean, a police officer tweaks your arm or puts you in handcuffs. And we have videos where in Galveston, on the beach in Galveston, officers have literally raised someone's arms above their head with handcuffs behind their head and, you know, forced them to the police cruiser, and a bunch of different incidents where a gentleman was standing on the street and officers are like pushing him out of the street even though there's no traffic. And there's a lot of these instances where officers are abusing their authority and residents are afraid to do something about it. Or they say, well, I got a ticket or I got an infraction, I would rather pay the infraction than deal with all of the stress and fear that comes with trying to handle or deal with an incident of excessive force. So there's a lot of victims, and that's why we're asking them to come forward.
Just aside from the DOJ letter, and you mentioned again plans to sue the city, anything specifically you're seeking, whether it's damages and, you know, like I said, the changes of calling for the police chief and for that review board, any specific damages or anything that y'all are seeking or plan to seek?
Listen, the damages in this case, and the lawsuit will be filed, as I explained, very soon, because we're having to identify the officers involved and all the details, which Galveston Police Department will not share with us. So we have to do a lot of investigating and digging on our own. And it's funny because when we started to do the research to try to identify the officers at the Island Bay Pool Resort is when a number of residents started coming forward and saying, I was abused, I was abused, I was abused. And that's how we got this compilation video together, because there's so many different instances of excessive force. And it's serious. I mean, people are getting punched in the face, they're getting handcuffed, and their arms are twisted and shoulders are dislocated. They're getting knees on their back, all kinds of things. And so what we are specifically asking for at this time is that the city of Galveston acknowledge the culture of excessive force and come to the table to work with me and these families so that we can find a solution. You know, filing a lawsuit and asking for damages, that's one way to compensate a family. But what the city of Galveston residents deserve is a solution to the ongoing problem of excessive force being used by the police officers. All right, if you guys have it, you have a question?
Yes.
No.
So earlier you mentioned you believe that there is a unit that's being trained on how to abuse citizens. Could you elaborate more on that?
So, in our research, we have identified at least 4 officers who have been repeatedly caught on video excessively abusing residents. If I make a mistake, Chuck can correct me. Officer Gaynor, I believe is his name. Officer Lavelle, is it Lavelle or Lowell?
Caldwell,
Officer Caldwell.
Lieutenant Caldwell.
Lieutenant Caldwell. Sergeant Gaynor, is that what his name is?
Yes, sir.
Sergeant Gaynor. Jared Rivas. And there was another one that was on the video.
The lady's name was Officer De La Cerda.
And Officer De La Cerda. These officers have been identified on video that was usually taken by an onlooker or a witness that was, seeing what was going on. And so at least those officers have been identified. And what we've noticed is that Lieutenant Caldwell specifically appears to be someone who has been, he's the highest ranking of the officers, by the way. He appears to have been there for quite a while. He's had complaints against him. He's had a number of incidents of excessive force. So he appears to be the senior officer that is training these lower officers on excessive force. I also have been in touch with a former officer of the Galveston Police Department, who has informed me that during his tenure in the Galveston Police Department, the officers were specifically educated and trained on how to enforce tactics to harm and hurt detainees or people who had altercations with the police, instead of creating a protocol for when individuals are getting out of hand or getting to be a little bit unruly, to de-escalate the situation. What we believe is that we will be able to prove in our lawsuit that the Galveston Police Department has an excessive force protocol and it's being used and instituted, and that at least these four officers are involved in imposing that force. All right.
Lawyer
Yes.
Bevan, is there anything else that you want to add?
I just want accountability. I want to know how he was released on such a low bond, if there was a bond. I want to know that our families are safe. He was obviously a loose cannon then. What makes that any different now? My children's safety is our utmost importance, and I don't feel that my children are safe.
He was asked to be arrested that day. He was asked to be in handcuffs that day. He was in regular clothes. He was not in a uniform.
That
The
day I
uniformed officers had the right to arrest him and protect us, and they did it
They didn't step in
at all.
They stood by and they watched.
And they watched, and they held us back, and they would not allow us to protect our children, and they held us there so that he could. Absolutely. I asked to speak with his chief of police face-to-face myself, so that I could just have the peace at night, to know that I was not gonna have retaliation, that at least I had the big man behind me, and that I would be okay. Never, not once, has he looked me in my eyes.
Absolutely, and that if these residents wouldn't have caught the Island Bay incident on camera, it would have been impossible to prove. We would have never gotten any video from the Galveston Police Department. They would have not cooperated, collaborated, or done anything to help us. And the fact that I sent my notice letter to the Galveston Police Department in the city of Galveston about a month ago and have gotten not one response is indicative of their lack of accountability and their lack of desire to truly protect and serve the community. And that's what we're asking them to do their job and to protect and serve the residents of Galveston and the city of Galveston. And if they are not able to do that, or if the chief of police is not able to do that, the city leaders need to take the kind of action necessary to hold its own accountable. And that's what we're asking for.
Mr. Ramirez, I have a question.
Yes.
Your son Ezekiel was shot 6 times by Galveston police.
That is correct.
Have you received any information at all from the police department about who was involved and any details on it, police reports, anything?
That, they have not been forthcoming at this point in time. The initial request for Freedom of Information Act was made a couple of weeks after the incident. We waited the 10 days, and the response was that all information regarding this case, 911, video, was being held as it's a pending ongoing investigation by Texas Rangers. The particular officer, the ranger, was called. Of course, nothing could be disclosed at that one time, but at this point, there has been no communication from Galveston Police, PD, or the district attorney to myself, my wife, or to our attorney, other than they would hold it till some time in the future.
Is it your opinion that the Texas Rangers are doing the correct thing and not giving any information and basically kind of stalling this out for 6 months?
You know, before this incident, I had a very high regard of police department and the whole judicial process. I do believe that the Texas Rangers acted in an honorable manner and did the investigation. However, at some point in time, you know, it's a matter of what side you're on. So to take that information and not disclose to us, and then for the district attorney or anybody else in that realm hold that information from us, that just leaves a really sour taste in your mouth, and it just leaves us as a family hurting more. This has definitely affected our family. Myself, my wife, my brother-in-law, my in-laws. This is devastating us, because at this point in time, we still have nothing other than an autopsy report showing that he was shot 6 times.
Did you have a question, sir?
Yes, what do you think about the fact that Galveston Police Department is known for hiring other officers that have been fired from other departments, and also the fact that Jared Rivas had a conviction for breaking into cars, auto burglary, and they still hired him?
Those are questions that we need to prove and look a little further into, but I know that it's true because I've seen the criminal history of Mr. Rivas, at least those of the burglary of a vehicle that have been, that are already in the public realm. And I have seen other assaults that he was accused of or he was disciplined for in the police department. So we know that those things exist. But your question leads me to the question about Island Bay and the accountability of Officer Rivas and Island Bay resort-specific liability regarding these individuals. And I'll let Attorney Richard Paxton talk a little bit about how that affects Island Bay.
Yeah, property owners are supposed to provide a safe environment for their residents and guests. Not only did Island Bay not do that, they created a dangerous situation for the guests and the residents that were down at the pool on that day. It would have been very, in our opinion, very easy to determine that Jared Rivas was not competent to be a security officer there or a courtesy officer there at that resort. He had a history of violence, as we can see, and it's very important to hold property owners accountable in this situation, or else property owners will continue to hire people who create these dangerous situations if they're not held accountable. So we look forward to holding them accountable. As you can see from these ladies, that it was a terrible experience out there for everybody, created by Jared Rivas' propensity for violence. We're looking forward to getting justice for y'all.
Yes, sir, thank you.
And the Galveston Police Department's inability or unwillingness to step in and control the situation, which is exactly why we're asking for the de-escalation unit or training to be done with the Galveston Police Department, and we're asking for the city of Galveston to install some type of citizens accountability unit. And these ladies are glad to sign up for that unit, right? And listen, all these residents want is safety and peace and a place where they can raise their families and feel that they are getting the kind of services that their hard-earned tax dollars are paying for. Not so that officers can have all kinds of equipment and the wrong kind of training, but so that they can have the kind of investments required to have the right kind of training. You don't solve these problems with guns. You solve these problems with social training with the officers so that they know how to better address these types of conflicts and issues.
Mr. Rivas, may I make a follow-up comment to what you just said there?
Sure.
My son Ezekiel has suffered from mental illness for many, many years. One of the things that was said during the 911 call was the fact that he was schizophrenic. About May to last year in 23, the Galveston Police Department teamed up and made something called a COAST team. And then I'm going to read from my phone just to make sure I get it correctly. It is the compassionate, oh my gosh, I just missed it. Compassionate open access to services and treatment.
Say that one more time, a little bit slower, please.
Yes, it is called Compassionate Open Access to Services and Treatment. And it's a collaboration between Mental Health Services and Galveston Police Department. So one of the questions that my wife and my family, myself and my family have is, if this is something that was celebrated upon its inauguration, why was it the first thing that came out of the responding officers were gunshots? Should there have, in my opinion, there was plenty of time for de-escalation, as he was shot on his second story from down below. So
that's correct. It's the complete imbalance of investment into weaponry and protective gear versus the lack of investment in programs like COAST that exist. Some of these programs exist. You know, we're not coming up with some new invention, right? Some of these programs exist in the department and they're not being used. And if they would have been used properly, we would have avoided a lot of these incidents. And that's what we're asking the city of Galveston, to take a compassionate, honest look at what's happening with its police department and do something about it before more victims fall to the dangers of the excessive force culture going on in the city of Galveston Police Department. All right, if you have any individual questions for the guests, you feel free to talk to them individually. All right, thank you so much.
If anybody wants to pause and read this, it's pretty impressive. I'm really impressed with this law firm, man. Very impressed. They've spent a lot of their own time and money investigating the Galveston Police Department. Ruiz has even hired his own investigators. See you later.
Bye.
Ruiz has even hired his own investigators to investigate the Galveston Police Department. That's how they found me. So, super impressed with this law firm. If there's any more victims of the Galveston Police Department, please call Ruiz Law Firm. Phone number 713-234-7894. And you know what? I really wish that what's going on right now should happen in Fort Worth, because people think Galveston's out of line. Fort Worth is way worse. I really wish I would see something like this happen in Fort Worth.